Bombers, come out to play. Bombers, come out to play. Bombers, come out to play.
Welcome to the Collingwood Rant. I'm Sly.
And I'm See the Bombers Fly Down, 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 Spook.
Big day today against the Bombers. Traditional...
What happened?
Clash. Yeah, I don't know. Darcy Moore, late withdrawal with vertigo from the ear injury.
Vertigo? Late withdrawal with vertigo?
With the Alfred Hitchcock movie.
Was there any other movies he hired from Video Easy that didn't get back in time?
That's a good one.
Warrior.
You did tell people last week we're going to be doing this after a few beers. So Darcy Moore late withdrawal.
Mm-hmm.
Logan Morris pushes him into a collision.
Can't he afford a condom?
Logan Morris pushes him into a collision, not sided at all.
No.
Only 2 weeks earlier, fucking Mansell from Richmond was out of about 28 weeks for pushing a player into a contest.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell me what the distinction is there? I know someone told me, it wasn't that much of a push, but it was still a push. And that's the only reason Darcy Moore entered that contest head on, to get an injury to his head, which has now taken him out for 1 week at least. So why wasn't Logan Morris sided?
I'm not sure, but do we know the outcome last week when we talked about this in the round?
No, we don't know.
I feel conflicted because I didn't really have a problem with the push. I think it's an unfortunate incident, but now you're talking about the...
I didn't have a problem with the Mansell push.
Weighing up the outcome.
But this is the thing, is the AFL's going like, if you take a football action or whatever it is and it results in whatever, then you're in trouble. I don't have a problem with the Richmond either. But now they're saying there's an issue if you do that.
Well, they just make shit up week to week. It's
hard
to follow.
This is the double standard of it all. So we lost Darcy Moore, which for a very, very inexperienced, and when I say inexperienced, I mean like a back six that hasn't played a lot together with Houston coming in there and Perryman and Frampton now getting elevated back into there. You now suddenly lose your captain and the general back there. Cox went out, and who else came in? Fuck, I don't know. Membry came in.
Sullivan came in.
Membry, Sullivan, and Houston came in.
Yeah.
So some pretty good ends, but it was going to rain. Do you think like the Cox exclusion? What do you think of that?
I was 50-50 about whether he would play, simply because I think going in, and especially the way Goldstein ended up playing,
the way Cox
we would have been better served having two ruckmen to nullify some of that. And I thought that might have been the way to get midfield dominance, was to have the two of them beating up an old man, older than you, man, and then we'd have first use of the ball in the midfield. But I think they looked at, obviously, that Cameron could do the bulk of the lifting against him.
Especially on a rainy
day. And on a rainy day, Cox probably wouldn't have been as effective. And obviously they thought Sullivan would be a better option to come in and have some impact.
They didn't realise the way Dan McSlay was going to play those.
So yeah, look, I was ambivalent either way.
What was your expectation? Essendon have been shit this year. They don't know. They don't seem to know where they are in terms of their premiership aspirations. They've gone from challenging to rebuilding. But it's like, I went into this game really thinking, look, they're shit. They've done nothing the whole year. They've beaten up on Melbourne, that was one of the worst games I've ever seen. They beat up on Port, who was just fucking terrible. And I just thought, just play with the intensity and determination and consistency we have played over the last 5 weeks, and it won't be a problem. So what was your expectation playing Anzac? I mean, I know this is one thing that shits me. Sorry, it's people going, it's Anzac Day, they all lift. It's like, fucking really? You needed the day to lift? What were you doing the other weeks? Were you just fucking piss farting around until you got to Anzac Day?
They were lifting.
Yeah.
No, well, look, to be honest, I didn't think they'd trouble us all that much, and there was a period of the game where they troubled us a fair bit. It's hard to, like, I think you'd probably qualify your assessment of that based on the fact it wasn't going to be fucking raining all day. that would have probably changed the outcome of the game somewhat. I think you look at the way that we played in the first quarter, and we were pretty clean with our ball movement. We just looked dominant. We failed to convert a number of shots. We should have been a hell of a lot more up. I think in the dry you would have probably seen that. It was hard to link up with the way that the ball was slipping and sliding, and we had some fucking obsession with handballing into our opponent's arms throughout the entire
frustrating
game. But I think the some of that implied pressure, I was going to say, some of that pressure was it's almost like it was self-generated, that we probably thought we were going to have it easier than we did. We were playing like we should have had it easier than we did, and it took 3 quarters to make it easier than it was.
So, just to backstep a little bit, Darcy Moore goes out as captain, and Nick Dacos is appointed the captain, the youngest captain at Collingwood in 57 years.
Yeah, I'll give you a trivia question. We've never lost a game with Nick Dacos as captain.
There you go. And his dad
you can write that down in Trivial Pursuit.
John Ralph, the
hanging judge.
Yeah, 12-0. And
does that mean how many things he's ever got right?
Peter Dacos as captain. Yeah, I didn't see this, but you and Johnny watched the game together, and apparently John Ralph said, well, should Nick Dacos be captain because of his thing he did against Jared Berry? I didn't see any of this, so I'll get angry a little bit later.
He pulled out some fucking tweet with some, it's never been seen before footage, which I didn't watch, but that was his description of Dacos stomping on Berry's foot.
That was on the grassy knoll.
Apparently it was on the grassy knoll. And the foot went back and to the left.
Back and to the left. Back and to the left.
And I think the hanging judge tried to imply, like he fucking does, that this was something that was a slight against Nick, and he should be shot.
Just out of curiosity, because I posed to you both, this question: has there ever been a player in the history of the game who has drawn as much ire from dickheads like John Ralph, but also like the opposition, like, whoa, we're going to rough him up to shut him down? Has there ever been anyone else like Nick Dacos who's actually drawn this focus? Because I don't remember Chris Judd taking this sort of focus. I don't remember Patrick Cripps. I don't remember Gary Ablett. I've never known like opposition coaches go, yeah, we've got plans for him, and fucking like dickhead John Long might have fucking set an ambush to him. Like, do you ever recall this happening to an opposition player?
No, but we sell papers, we get clicks. I think they're just trying every conceivable angle to get people's ire raised so that we go and listen to their shit or watch their dribble.
And I want to address this.
Dribble. Did I say dribble?
No, I don't care.
There's a fair bit of dribble coming out of the hanging judge's mouth. What do you think that was from?
Oh, well, they lost. Richmond.
He apparently bruised the back of his head under the desk. I don't know what to make of this.
Ed Allen was
he was
dropped.
Involved.
He was dropped.
Was he?
Lucky Sullivan.
Like a hot potato, they said.
Was it a mistake to drop Ed Allen? Because I just want to address, there'd be Collingwood castigation about, you're not treating Ed Allen right.
Ed Allen's had 2 weeks of 10-minute performances. I think he's probably better served to go back and have a full run of the VFL. Just to confirm that he should be elevated again, which I think he should. But at the moment, I think, as you said, who does he displace? Who would you drop in that current side in favour of Ed Allen at the moment?
No,
well, it's unfortunately a great problem to have.
Yeah, I've had criticisms of the way McRae's cultivated the youth, but I do like the fact that Ned Long sort of staked the claim and he's now backed him. And that's the one thing I'd love to see Ed Allen do. I'd love to see him just come in and play as... Because he's a big guy. Yeah. To play with that determination and intent, which, I mean, Long's done pretty much every week when he's been given the chance.
Well, that's it. You contribute. You make it difficult to be dropped.
Mm-hmm.
And look, I think Ed Allen's chances have been probably nullified to some extent because of the limited game time. But I don't think he's done... And it's just unfortunate as well with such short amount of times. As he hasn't come in and done anything brilliant.
But from memory, round 0, he started and Long was the sub.
Long was sub for back-to-back games, wasn't he?
Yeah, Long was sub. I think he's been sub 3 times. I think he was sub and he played a full game against Port. Then he was sub against 2 weeks. But obviously Ed Allen had that opportunity. It's not to criticise Ed Allen in terms of everyone takes as long as they take to come up. But he didn't really sort of demand that position.
No, and I think you want players to come in who clearly are putting their hands up, and it's hard to argue against the reason why they should be selected. But at the same time, though, we do want to fucking see these kids come through and get some game time.
Oh, you do.
Yeah. So it's a wonderful problem to have.
I mean, the wonderful problem right now too is, and I'm sort of jumping ahead, but I'll do it this way anyway, because I've long been a critic of Steele Sidebottom under Nathan Buckley. Under fucking Craig McRae, this is the guy I always wanted him to be. He's fucking brilliant. He is. I don't think he was ever. I know people disagree. I don't think he was ever an elite player under Nathan Buckley as a coach.
Who was?
It's a good point. But under Craig McRae, he's been given a lot more license. He just keeps burrowing away.
License to thrill, he says.
I look at him and think, people go, well, you got to get rid of some of these old guys. I think, well, if they're playing like this, it's really hard to get rid of anyone.
It is borderline farcical that at that age, him and Pendles are still solid contributors. They shouldn't be, but it's fucking great that they are.
Well, the good thing about Sidey is just he's always been an elite runner, but he's just running. He's just running from contest to contest. And now I will throw out some criticism. Like, there were times, Will Hoskin-Elliott, Patrick Lipinski, Dan McStay, the Bobby Hill in the first half particularly, there were times there were contests and they just held their position. And it was like, no, go attack the fucking contest. Go kill the contest. Go put some pressure. They didn't do it. And Sidebottom was just running. I mean, there's other players doing it. But this is the thing. I mean, that really frustrates me. I mean, anyone out there who's going to fucking defend the games that some of these other guys played. Hoskin kicked a really important goal in the last quarter. I thought he was like really borderline criminally bad for the rest of it. Lipinski, the amount of times he just stayed out of contests, waiting for that outside ball.
There was a number of players who just didn't look like they wanted to put their head over the ball, and they were happy to sort of almost not be a contributor in that contest. And whether that's a belief that the ball was going to spill out in the wet, or whether it's that fear of look, we saw it in the first quarter, I think it was, the tripping incident with Josh Dacos, was it, that slid in to the ball and someone fell over him and a free was paid against it. I'm wondering how much of an impact some of that has in them actually pulling out of certain contests, especially in the wet when sliding actions and people falling over are commonplace.
Look, I understand any football team, the chemistry of a football team is you'll have guys like your Tom Mitchells, your Ned Longs, your Scott Burns, your Patrick Cripps, and they'll just be fucking in and in and in.
Fearless.
Yeah.
Inside players.
And then you'll have your guys like Pendles and Nick who will do both. They'll try and be in, but they'll try and be out. But when they're in, they're not burrowing away. No. They're trying to sort of get in, but get out at the same time. And then I understand you'll have your guys like Lipinski and that who are going to play out and be fed the ball, and then they're going to create from that. And totally understand that. And I have no issue with that. The issue I have is every now and again in football, there's going to be a situation where, you know what, you're the outside guy. You have to fucking go. You cannot stand out.
Yeah.
It is your turn to go, regardless of the fact that is not your role. Because the only way we're going to contest that ball is if you decide to leave the outside and come in and fucking play that ball. And I hate watching players who just say, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to go for that contest because it's not my thing.
I think the hard thing in tonight is you can probably excuse it a little bit, but when the game started to flip and Essendon started to come back in it, we really stood on the outside a lot. And we just happily watched a lot of the passages of play. And you think, it's just not the way that we played in the first quarter. We were quite attacking. We were pressuring Essendon a fair bit. We were forcing turnover. The minute that we took the foot off that pressure pedal, they looked fucking clean as. Yeah. They were making fucking passes, they were taking marks, and in considering the wet weather conditions, they were doing exceptionally well with it, and they started scoring as a result, going a lot more direct and working the ball a lot more intelligently than we were, and they just knew that they weren't going to get that sense of resistance either.
Well, I should point out, like what I said about 19 times, for a wet game, a rainy game, and not saying it's an arse or a fluke, but the amount of fucking overhead contested marks they took were just unbelievable.
Oh, we were dropping a lot.
We were double grabbing, triple grabbing things. They were just one grabbing things they had no right to grab in the wet. Good on them. But Zach Reed was fantastic. I really want to give him credit. It is Zach. Well, whatever the fuck.
Number 31.
31, Dustin Fletcher. But yeah, he was really, really good.
Look, most of the entries he
Wright
was
looked scary whenever the ball went to him. And you had like, I think it's actually, because it's funny, you sort of walk away, maybe we need to watch it again, but you win by 7 goals, and I was sort of looking at, I don't actually think our strengths really worked. You know, Darcy Cameron's been great most of the year. I don't think he was that great this week, today. I think Goldstein just kept wrestling him, and Peter Wright kept wrestling him, and, you know, they got more tap-outs. So I don't think he had a great game. Nick, I don't think he had a great game. He had moments of good stuff. De Goey had like moments, but he wasn't really good or strong. I thought Pendlebury had sort of moments, but wasn't really great. I think he sort of actually turned over a bit. The one guy who was a consistent there was Steele Sidebottom in the middle. So it was actually like, I'm looking and going, well, fuck, you win by 7 goals on the game. I don't think our strength, which is the engine room, really was working. And then when you go down to defence, you didn't have Darcy Moore. Howe was pretty good for the most of it. He made that one massive fuck up where he just fumbled the ball in the second quarter, and that started their
run. They started the chain of 4 goals for them.
Josh was fantastic.
Yep.
Houston was great in the first quarter, and I don't think he really did anything that good afterward. Quaynor did a few little things, but like I kept expecting him to be a bit more proactive. Maynard was great. Who's the other guy? Perryman. I don't think he was solidish, but not really that great. So it was like a lot of, and then yard forward, Mychek wasn't that good. McStay I thought was terrible. Membry, he plays this sort of game like he'll do his things, and then when he's not doing those things, he does nothing. Elliott was fantastic. He could have easily won the medal. Hill I thought was diabolical in the first half, but was really good in the second half. And McCreary sort of came in and out and did a few little things. So. And then there's guys like Crisp and that side. Crisp tied the games record for consecutive games. So I thought he was pretty good in for most of it. But like, it wasn't a game where I thought, look, our strengths are really working to our strengths, and we had to sort of compensate for Moore not being there, and for not taking marks up forward, and for Nick not having a 40 position game and all that. And you still won by 7 goals.
That's the baffling bit. I mean, you come across sounding incredibly negative here, and I think they're all valid criticisms. At the end of the day, we fucking smashed it. It's one of those real strange type of games. I think, Fly talked about in the presser afterwards about that they with the weather, that was all about winning territory, and then obviously moving the ball forward in snippets and stuff that we couldn't link up or transition as well as we normally would like. It didn't seem to bother Essendon at times, so it's a bit of a baffling statement. But however, we fucking won by 7 goals. So
it was actually like sort of polarised. Like in the first quarter, I thought we really sort of just played go long and get the ball to fucking territory.
Yeah, that was fun, because like the amount of times that we went inside 50, we weren't fucking taking too many contested marks inside 50. That 31 for Essendon, Reid.
Yeah.
What's his name? Dustin Fletcher.
Yeah.
He just seemed to be intercepting a lot of our entries, and then it would come back, and we'd force a lot of turnovers outside of 50, either through the wet or some of them weren't essentially forced. But we could repetitively keep attacking, but we just weren't capitalising on a lot of those attacks.
Yeah, the thing too, I was going to
what's that over there?
The other thing I was going to say too is like a lot of our forward entries just seem to be bomb, long, and with height, with plenty of hang time to let Essendon defenders get to it. I don't really recall very many where it was kicked to our forwards' advantage, whereas so many times when I went forward, it was kicked at it like a lead. It was a guy dragging back into space. It was really frustrating, and there wasn't enough pressure sort of coming from the middle. But in terms of that, there was too many times, and I don't know if it's because of Moore's absence and the roles changed. There was too many times, like, I supported Billy Frampton since he's come to Collingwood, but there was times he was just way off his player, and his opponent just had too much space to lead into. And not just picking on him, because it happened a bit. But it, like I said, it's a weird game that I don't think we really, if I sort of had to sort of put both teams down and they said like rate out of 10 how well they played, I'd say, well, I think we played at about a 5 and they played at about an 8, and we still beat them. And then
what the hell is that? Yeah,
we'll edit that. Was that the happiness about the?
I've seen horror films that start with that thing growing on your finger. There's a pulp of lemon.
He'll probably start his own podcast.
It'll stay there. Let's monitor over the next few rants and just see how it solidifies.
On the Collingwood list.
If we have a really bad loss against Carlton, maybe we can open our wrists up on it. Yeah, so and you look and as much as you sort of bemoan the function of the forward line, Elliott had a fucking great game.
Yeah.
He dominated. I mean, he would have. I think we haven't seen the final votes for the Anzac medal, but I think amidst the 2 or 3 options that were probably the ones we were discussing as the likely winner, he was well and truly to kick 5 in Anzac Day in the wet is a phenomenal effort. And he would have been pretty much close to Sidey, I think, with the votes. Sidey, I think, obviously dominated with the clearances. He ended up with about 14,000 of them or something in the end of the game. So he's well and truly a worthy winner. But Elliott's performance was fantastic. And the thing is that, again, and I think Brad Scott, is it Brad Scott or Chris Scott? I can't remember which fucking one it is.
Brad
Tweedle D.
I like Chris, so...
He said in his presser that they'll learn a lot from playing against such experience. And you're thinking, it's some of these seasoned guys, and obviously we have a lot of them running around, but they're really fucking playing like they're newborns, essentially. The energy and the freneticism. He goes, well, how old's Elliott now? He's
in his early 30s.
Early 30s. Sidey's, 34?
Yeah.
34, 35. Pendles, I don't think... disgraced himself today, and he's 912 years. He's like Yoda.
Well, the thing is, I mean, the biggest problem with the criticism of the age is, okay, you're an old group. All right, fine, you're an old group. But hang on, you got Travis Boak playing at Port at 35. You got Wines playing in the early 30s. There's a lot of these guys running around. Gunston, you saw last week against fucking Geelong, had a great game. Obviously, in this age of where players are preparing differently to back in the 80s and 90s and all that sort of stuff, and even the 2000s, they're getting longer careers and they're playing longer time, so the whole average should actually shift up. Now I don't want to say like fucking let's just keep lining up our team with older players, but in terms of the way the game was, back in growing up in the 90s and all that, it was like, oh, you started at 18, 19, 20 and then you finished pretty much at 30, 31, 32, and then you'd occasionally have a Michael Tuck or a Craig Bradley who'd played, or Dustin Fletcher who'd played into the late 30s. Nowadays, they're not the exceptions anymore. There's a lot of guys playing into the late 30s, looking like they can actually play. And there's a lot, and I think that's just judged by, if you look at the guys in the 300 games and that, there's a lot of them in there now, because obviously there's a different level of professionalism, which is preserving their bodies a lot better to keep them going longer. So that means, instead of saying, well, they're the oldest team ever and going, oh, holy fuck, they're the oldest team ever, it should be like, well, they're maybe a year older than, on average, than the oldest team previously, but all those averages have now shift. The medians totally shift.
Well, they told us, Channel 7, that this is Essendon's the youngest side that's in comp at the moment.
Who gives a fuck?
That's exactly right. Yeah, well, we beat the fuck out of them. I think it's nice when older people beat the shit out of young people.
Okay, so look, I mean, we sort of went off 98 tangents, and I blame the Bear for that. First quarter, we really beat them up. Second quarter, we were beating them up until they had a Howe fumble, and then they just really ran over the top of us. Half time, third quarter, our third quarters have been really, really good, but they actually got in front in the third quarter. So it looked like, what would your expectation ever? They're potentially going to overrun us. We've been up for 5 weeks.
Look, I definitely thought.
Keep this?
I think we all ran the gamut of emotions watching it tonight, or this afternoon rather. When the tide turned and they kicked those 4 in a row in the second quarter, you started to think that, fuck, we do look old and slow right now. And I think that's the get out of jail gimme clause, that it's just easy to rationalise what you're seeing. They were all taking a step backwards. They, like, fucking Essendon just carved us up and just kept repetitively attacking. Really direct football. We were nowhere near the contest. A lot of the times when the ball came our way, they had 2 or 3 players swamping us. When the reverse was happening, we had 1 or 2 that may be 4 or 5 metres away from where the ball was landing. And it just kept landing for them. It was just incredible. They were marking, the ball just kept falling their way.
Presenting hard.
The umpiring kept going their way.
Fucking hell.
And yet we weathered all that storm and we ended up winning by 41 points. It's one of those transitions in terms of, fuck, they're going to push us here. This is, you start thinking about, is it going to be another draw like last year? Are we just going to get across the line? Fly said in the presser at the end about, normally these games you find it difficult to score and you end up winning by a kick or two, or losing by a kick or two. But we just went fucking ballistic in the last and scored. It was just a real, because you saw. I mean, obviously we looked out the door here and it was pissing down. At the ground, it looked like it endlessly rained throughout the whole game. Yeah. There was no let off or anything like that. You don't get to see a lot of it on TV, but clearly it was quite wet and slippery and greasy and all those sorts of things. But yeah, it was just a real odd game to qualify, because just the way. I mean, we scored above 100 points. We won by 7 goals, and you'd sort of look at that and go, you'd be happy with that performance in the dry. You should be ecstatic with it, being a wet weather game.
This goes back to what I said before. So in terms of our potential, I think we played like a 5 out of 10 potential. And when I say 5 out of 10, like I don't mean every player's 5 out of 10. Sidebottom played a 9 out of 10 game. But there's a lot of players who were playing like a 2 or 3 10 out of games, so average. But it was this really sort of weird dichotomy where I thought we really struggled to get continuity or fluency throughout the game. We had it in patches. And in that second half, I actually think they dominated us. And it was just that, like, there was a few little bits where we just counted them and we made it count. And I recall Gunner from, formerly used to write for the Rant, I remember he said years ago, he goes, you always look slow when you're chasing. And those sort of situations when they were running on top of us, I don't think it was because we had a lack of pace or we were too old or anything. It was just, they were first to the ball, they were moving it quickly, and I don't think it would have really mattered who the fuck was opposing them. They just had precision and purpose and space. But then you go to that third quarter when they it's always an interesting one, because it's like, you think, when you're challenged, how do you respond? And in the third quarter, we found out post-game that communications went out for the most part, and it was intermittent. But both coaches lost communications.
I saw they were communicating with semaphore at one stage.
Yeah, and then fucking they were doing smoke signals and all that sort of
stuff. Did
both
boxes go out, or was it just Essendon? Because the way they carried on after the game was like Essendon were compromised.
I got a few texts before we started filming this. So
from the hanging judge,
from Turts, because of Nicholas, but McRae's response was effectively, trust yourselves, you're okay.
Yeah.
And
but he's coaching from the boundary line, so
yeah. But Brad Scott's response was, "I've never felt more out of control in my life," and this is like the media exaggerating, embellishing it too. Because I'm thinking, you set them out there to play, they're mostly just going to do whatever they're going to fucking do, and you got very minor control over how much you can influence the momentum at that stage, but. It's this sort of thing like where you think, well, maybe this 400 years of age average that we have now, it does actually benefit them. You look at Pendlebury, if he only gets a small possession game, 15 possessions or whatever, he is on field coaching him quite a bit. So how much does that actually hold them instead and counter the thing of, well, they're fucking too old and all that sort of shit. And I really want to point out John Ralph, you dick! So if you didn't see him post game when I was talking about the fault in the communication, he really sort of pitched it as almost an unfair advantage that we had an older, more experienced team.
Yeah. No, it was an amazing statement. But I think, again, that's that attempt to rile up Collingwood supporters, and clearly it's worked.
Let me rile up you, John Ralph. You're a fucking cunt. You are a shit journalist. You are emblematic of shit sensationalistic journalism. You are a dick. And you know what? I'm glad the Herald Sun overlooked you for Jay Clark as the chief football writer. I think that's an indictment on your lack of ability and your lack of integrity. You dick. Go, carry on.
Do you want to just tell us what you really feel?
No.
Okay.
Look, I've bagged journalism for years. I fucking wrote about it on the Raw and this shit. There's certain journalists I really like because they're just football based, but there's certain ones who are just muckrakers and you're just going for fucking headlines. And I'll tell you one, it's actually inverted. Like, I used to really be a critic of Damien Barrett, and I actually really like him now.
The Velvet Sledgehammer.
That was Matthew Lloyd.
Was it?
Yeah, that was good. But it's in terms of...
Purple Warrior, that's the prick, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know. But I'm just sort of saying, it's... I say whatever you want in relation to actually logically and constructively analysing the game. But you know what? If you're just going to be a dick for headlines, you're a fucking dick and you shouldn't be out there in the media.
Oh, that's it. He's the hanging judge. He thinks he's the arbiter of all outcome. Based on what I've no fucking idea. Maybe he can enlighten us one day. But yeah, no, I don't have a lot of time for him.
Well, do you have less time than I do?
Ralph and Malf.
Yeah, your final thoughts about this game?
It was a great fucking win at the end of the day.
Brilliant win. You feel bad that you were saying we should sack McRae?
Well, at what point? Before the first bounce or after?
No, I'm just kidding about that. Where do you feel, we lost that first game, it looked like, oh fuck, well, they are too old and too slow, and now we are 6-1. I actually think of those 6 games, probably 4 of them have won relatively convincingly, and our inaccuracy has made it look a little bit closer than it has. And 2 of the other games, one of the other games at least, I think we dominated convincingly, but we just made a lot of errors. Today was like I said, I don't think we actually played that well, and we still beat them convincingly.
No, and I think, winning ugly is still winning. You want delivering everything we want. The 4 points, a good percentage boost. They're ticking every box at the moment, and they're not really super peaking, but they're just playing exceptionally well when it matters. Look, I'm quite mindful that this time last year Sydney were untouchable. They were going to win the flag 64 times that year, and they tapered off as the year progressed. You can crow too early with a lot of this stuff, but at the moment they're doing everything right.
I think the thing that really gives me hope is you've played, the 7 games, and I think Nick Dacos has only been great in 1 of them. And in the rest, people are going, well, how long Pendlebury and Simon go? Well, I don't give a fuck, they're doing it, so shut the fuck up. Sidebottom did today.
You don't want to be Dacos-centric.
No, but this is the thing I'm saying, is I think they're getting a lot of input from other players. I think, I've said it previously, is Ned Long being in there, I think that helps take focus off. And we were talking about it in the game. I think Ned Long had a great game in terms of statistically and influence and all that. He's still got 22 possessions, got 4 tackles, but there was times you just saw he threw his body on the line. How many times was he up forward as an option? He ran. There's some really good. There's a fucking one brilliant tackle, which I don't know how you didn't fucking pay it. But in terms of, you get this synergy now with the midfield that, hey, there's a couple of guys who might not be getting statistically rewarded, but they're doing stuff that's allowing other players to get away with the fucking ball. The big concern, I think, is the Darcy Moore vertigo injury.
Yeah, well, I mean, it still doesn't look great, that footage of him sitting there bleeding out his ear, that you wouldn't think that that's going to have other effects. Because they said at the time it was cut, he was stitched up and he was fine, passed the concussion test, but he wasn't even around the ground today. If the fucking big lug can't stand up and function, how long is it going to take to get over this? Is it a damage to the lobe of the drum or whatever it is? Well, I think they're going to come out and give us a little bit more info this week. If he misses the game against the Cats, that's going to be a bit hard. But
the problem in the area is
you don't want to miss him for 1 or 2 weeks. You can tolerate. I don't want him out for 2 or 3 months.
Yeah, I mean, when I was younger, I used to have a lot of in-ear issues, and the problem is it is sort of something like, it seems fine, and it just comes, and then it goes again. He had the blood out of his ear, which was really interesting. I remember playing indoor cricket in my 20s and getting hit in the head with the ball, and it burst my eardrum. And it sort of was impacted balance and all that for a couple of weeks. So it was a fucking big hit. It wasn't like, you got a 100-pound guy, fucking 100 kilos
as well, wasn't it?
So you don't know what it's done.
Sledgehammer.
And that is the big problem, is it is a place where it's not a typical injury. It's not something you say it's 2 to 4 weeks or whatever. It is something that's oh fuck, well, we don't know what it's going to be. He could be back next week. He could be back next week and then miss the next 3 weeks and then be back the week after. So you really got to hope that fucking works out.
No, but you want him back when he's right. But it's a little bit concerning. I think the way that Frampton, he's not a Moore replacement. I think he.
Oh no, he's terrible.
He defends way too much from behind. A lot of the times you'd like to see him maybe outwork his opponent. He's a big boy, a little bit of bustle and get in front. But he just seems content to sort of hang back and try and spoil. Whereas Moore's got a lot more than his bow in terms of the way he defends. I don't want to be doing this every week to be relying on.
You can't do
Frampton.
it every week, and this is the big concern. So in terms of like I said, I've always backed Frampton, but he's not the Darcy Moore interceptor, take a mark,
he's your
impacts,
stay-at-home
counter.
gorilla.
Yeah, that's the guy he's meant to be playing. And there's times probably he was shown up today where he would have had probably more cutting across and stuff like that. So you really need the more figure back.
More, please.
Yeah, come on, Darcy, what are you doing? Final thoughts about this game?
No, I said brilliant.
Alright, cool. So, got some points I want to bring up with you because they're all AFL big issues. Noah Bolter should have been allowed to play for Richmond when you had this assault and battery charge hanging over his head.
Yeah, look, I think there's no issue with him playing. Look, you know, he did a wrong thing, but, you know, that night when he belted a bloke, there would have been 12,000 other blokes got belted that night too for various reasons. Do we know the context of what happened, why he went apeshit? I don't think he's got a history of doing it, has he? He's not out there belting someone every 6 minutes. The thing that I found borderline hilarious is there was the incident with Alir and the kid who threw a paper plane or something.
I was going to ask you about that.
And he's hung, drawn and quartered by the media.
2 years, yeah.
He's banned for 2 years from the stadium. What's worse, Noah Bolter or him?
Yeah, I'd say Noah Bolter's worse.
And who got the lesser of the suspensions?
Well, Noah Bolter got the celebrity penalty. You know, because if that was just me belting someone at the service station, I'd probably get 6 to 12 months incarcerated. I don't have a problem with Richmond playing him because it's like, well, you know, if I'm on bail, if I was working any other job, they probably wouldn't be saying, well, you can't come to your job until this is heard. But the penalty, I think, is a bit of a farce. It's just like, just stick him in fucking prison or send him to North Melbourne or something that's going to penalise him really horribly. But yeah, it's weird. But the guy, the kid, the 16-year-old kid who threw the fucking, whatever, the record, the banner, whatever it was, at Alir, what would you have done with him?
I think these are opportunities to help people learn from their fuck-ups. I think the best way to learn anything in life is make a mistake and learn from that moment. You know, I think the fact that they silently hung, drew and quartered.
Just before you make this criticism, what do you think about his mother? Whoever you're criticising. What would his mother think about this criticism?
Is she hot? Yeah, so like, yeah, I think that kid, you could use that opportunity to make it a little bit of a spokesman. It doesn't happen all that often. I think most of us get it right, but you know, in the heat of the moment, he's a fucking 15, 16-year-old kid who fucked up. You know, like, yeah, have him talk, have him and Alir. Actually, I thought at the time the best thing would have been when Alir spoke to him and stuff was just put the hand out and shake hands.
Who, him or the Alir?
Or Alir. Because, like, an adult has to control that. A kid's not likely to do it. He's probably feeling embarrassed as all fuck for that little moment. And that sort of then makes it a little bit more of a go-to moment about, well, you can work through these things. You know, you don't want people throwing stuff over the fence no matter what. I think the penalty for it was harsh. Just like when Goods called out that girl. You know, this is a vulnerable kid who made a fucking stupid mistake. You know, but you've now pretty much zeroed in on that person, and they're not at that age mature enough or emotionally prepared to accept especially with social media these days. You're name shamed and fucking killed by fuckwits on X that could potentially do the same, and how much harm's that going to do them? I think you can be constructive with these moments. You don't have to destroy to make it. And like I said, it's not an ongoing problem. It happens so infrequently. Like, you know, people having their legs slit out and having injuries as a result, but they treat that seriously. So, again, what do I know?
Yeah, I simply disagree. I would have had the kid executed. I think that would have taught future generations. So you
would have had him move in with John Ralph for a week?
No, but it's like the kind of supporter who hugged the West Coast player last year, and he was fucking suspended for a year. And I'm like, I can understand what the stance is. It's like, we don't want that interaction, but surely the context should be, hey, you're going to get really punished for anything that's considered confrontational. I actually don't mind that they fucking penalise with tears. I totally agree it should be a learning moment, and it should be examined in the moment. And, you know, it's like, well, he is a stupid kid. Maybe we need to just teach this stupid kid that, hang on, you got to be better than this, and everyone else should look at this as an example. But the typical AFL thing is it's just arbitrary. So I
don't think it was the AFL who imposed that. It was the SCG.
Do you really think the AFL didn't have any input into the way that was going to go?
What sort of fuckwit am I? If I got any stupider, I'd be riding with John Ralph.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, outside of executing him, which still it's advisable. You can still do it. Yeah.
Death by 1,000 paper cuts.
Yeah. Look, it's a really sort of weird thing, you know. There's that really funny Bill Burr bit, the comedian. He talks about like there's some comedians. There's some fucking drunken hecklers in the crowd, and they pissed off the basketballers. The basketballers actually ran in and started a fight, and the people who heckling were like, "Holy fuck." This has now turned to total nightmare shit that I didn't expect it to turn to. And he goes, that went totally the way you thought it would go when you pick on a professional athlete and they come and fucking confront you. It's like, well, yeah. Anyway, totally gone off track. Finlay McRae, shoulder, another 28 weeks he's going to be out.
See you later. Done.
It's not bagging Finn, but like, geez, AFL careers sometimes are just like that fucking one moment. You know, you look at Finn, he would have been, 18 months ago, he would have been like the guy you would have thought, hey, it's going to be your position to take from Tom Mitchell. And then 18 months later, it's like, well, hang on now, Ned Long and Ned Allen are in front of you. And then Perryman and...
It just goes to show that when you have your opportunities, you have to take it with both hands. And I think some just don't, it just doesn't work for them. It's not the first time, it won't be the last.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of almost sliding doors type of thing. Tom Mitchell was back, apparently played relatively well.
He was in Noosa on the weekend. How did he get back so quick?
Who fucking knows?
Did he take the transporter?
Yeah, could have. I should read some comments.
Read some comments.
Costa Vassilos. Guys, thank you. That was nice of him.
Yeah, that's good. Thanks. Thanks, Costa.
John is looking for the Anzac Day. Pies are flying. Nick in white form. And
He's in white form.
we're bolstered by the return of Houston.
It's a racist statement, isn't it?
Well, Essendon are struggling and have lost Draper and Parrish. We should look to exploit their weakness in the ruck and go with Cameron and Cox again. Yeah, we didn't. Unfortunately, Pies by a point. Fuck.
Ye of little faith.
Hot dog 75. So
was that McRae who sent that one?
It's just my pitch. It was a complete performance. We not only played a defensive masterclass, but we piled on the goals, which is awesome. Lions could not move the ball at all. They didn't know what to do many times. Loved the four-quarter performance. We've done it back now against the last two grand finalists. More of this, please. Collingwood. Ashton Prison.
He's in prison?
Yeah. A real complete performance.
Did he throw something over the fence?
Just to reflect on Jamie Elliott, he could do it all. Great in the air and on the ground.
Is that
kick, goal.
Was that Nostradamus who wrote that one?
Hold on. Ash in prison.
Ash in prison. Do you have next week's test lotto numbers?
Shot goal or bend it around his body from the boundary. Credit where credit due. I thought Jamie Elliott was cooked at the end of last year. He's come out firing and arguably in a career best form.
It's two
at 32, which is great. This same guy.
Is it?
Yeah. Which is sorry, it's Digsby.
Is he future boy?
Which is crazy to say. Let's hope he keeps it up. Upon they come August and September. Hoskins Elliott was not bad at all, Digsby said. You just lost all cred, man.
Fucking hell, mate.
You're doing so well.
Jesus. It's like someone else took over the typewriter.
Yep. But you left us where you left him. Buried alive. People wondering what the fuck we're quoting. It is not ironic, boys. This is Jason.
Was this Alanis Morissette that just wrote in?
Yeah. This is one I need to read. It is not ironic, boys, that according to some of our supporters, you cannot have a negative opinion about any of the Collingwood players, but those people commenting that are allowed to have a negative opinion of you! Exclamation mark. How much self-awareness do they lack? Also, just wait for the moment these supporters find out that the AFL players cop big sprays from their coaches from time to time. Next, they'll be telling the coaches they aren't allowed to be negative toward the players. Lol. Well done. Yes, I totally agree. And people have been criticising. I think you thought about our mothers. Has anyone thought about our mothers?
Are they hot?
I know you thought about my mother, you fucking sick. And Hot Dog responded, I hate that. The players need to hear some criticism. It can't just be all positive, otherwise they'll never improve. Sure, things are great at the moment, but we can't be complacent. Totally fucking agree.
Spot on.
Yep.
Hot Dog.
Playing this week, so obviously McStay out.
It's medial ligament.
At the time of recording this, medial ligament.
6 to 8 weeks is the anticipated time that he's away. It was looking like ACL there for a while, but hopefully, scans will reveal the truth tomorrow.
What would you do? So you talked about bringing Charlie West straight up.
Straight in.
But who would do the rucking then?
Long. or Sullivan.
Well, Nedvon did some of the rucking, and Sullivan definitely is too small to do the rucking.
No, I think it's going to have to be Cox. And the thing is, Cox can drift back and take marks in defence and forward and miss a few goals. That's acceptable, especially against Geelong because they've got a number of tools. He has to come back in this week, surely.
No, look, I said it for 48 years. Cox is a really good tap ruckman. He can be a little bit hit and miss with his marks. Sometimes he's on, sometimes he's off. I do like that he's got fucking some attitude. It's when Essendon had their run on the second quarter, it was a McStay was in the ruck. And I'm not criticising McStay other than say that
Yeah, he's not a ruckman either, so
that's right. He's a part-time ruck. He's expected to be
very part-time.
Cox does those things like you go back to the finals of 2023 and the first thing against Melbourne, he just went straight up and stuck his fucking knee in Gawn's chest, and then Gawn would have fought for the rest of the game. This guy is bigger than me. He's a Texan. He's potentially
bigger
insane.
Cox.
Yeah, and this guy might just run into me. Whereas when you get
he doesn't like Cox running into him.
But when you get guys who are smaller, part-time ruckmen, yeah, they're going to wrestle and just try and negate rather than try and win. Whereas Cox is going to always try and win.
Cox always try to win.
Schultz should be back for the Geelong game.
He will be back, Schultz.
Do you bring him straight back in?
I think you have to, don't you?
I don't know.
He's the greatest player that's ever played for Collingwood.
Could you ruck?
He can do anything, Schultz. He's got his own step ladder.
Would you take that?
Oh, easy. I'm going to take it.
Where would you take the step ladder?
I'm taking as far as I can.
Yeah. You haven't criticised his mother, though, because what would her mother think? I don't know. She's thinking she's alive, you fucking... So you'd think, McStay's out. I don't know if Sullivan will survive. It's more likely that they'll bring Schultz in, but then who plays the sub role?
Maybe Schultz, because he's coming off 3 weeks of a hammy. They might think he comes on as an impact player.
Where's the goalie at? I don't know. Where is he at?
He started brilliantly tonight in the first quarter, but then
because he's been good since 2017 apparently. But where else is he at?
He's struggling a bit, isn't he? He's not having that. How many goals he kicked tonight? Just the one.
Oh, I can look at the stats, but I might have just screwed him up.
Just make something up.
I mean, he took that one good mark top the goal square.
Yeah, it's a funny one. I think the thing is, it doesn't matter how he performs during the season. When it gets to finals, he fucking goes up 12 notches. Does that make it okay? I'm not sure. I'd like to see a lot more impact, especially a player of his talent and ability and his skills.
I don't want to see impact. I want to see this guy dominate the way he's capable of dominating.
He just seems to fade in and out a lot, but
I mean, he's a great...
Maybe that's it. Maybe that's all we're going to get.
He's a big moment player and all that.
It's great fucking moments, though.
He's not Christian Petrarca. He's Jake Stringer. He's got his moments where he's great. Petrarca's great consistently, and then do the fucking amazing moments on top of that. But I think the guy has the potential to do that. I mean, in the 2022 and 2023, he had some really good games where he was consistently getting good returns and all that. But right at the moment, well, not even at the moment, since last year, he came back like a lot slimmer and all that. He had the osteitis or whatever the fuck the case was, and then he had an abdominal strain. Like, he's just really looked like he's just not quite comfortable in his own body.
No, there was one particular passage that stood out tonight for me that the ball coming to the forward line, there was him and someone else with the sole people in there, and the ball went opposite to where he was, and the Essendon, his opponent, chased, and he looked like he was struggling to run and close that distance. So clearly, was it as an ankle or as a groin or whatever he's carrying? He's fully not 100%, and I think they think that he's just going to be better for the run at the moment. So I guess it's a wait and see type thing. But
it's not saying you should drop him, but in terms of like, you put him in there at 50%, and he's a lot better than still so many other options. But it's a really hard one too to watch at times, because sometimes I think we're expecting the goey, but you're getting the compromised version for whatever reason he's compromised. Against Geelong. Geelong had a great win against fucking Hawthorn. Did you watch that game?
Yeah.
What would you have done with the Bailey Smith thrust into football?
I know you're supposed to hate it, but I like that. I think it's just, just a little smart-ass moment. Didn't hurt anyone. You just move on. He didn't get any sanctions or anything. Did he get a fine or?
Not something where I'll give him 6 weeks though. It's that's the sort of stuff. It's like, well, you only be tough, fine, but if you're actually colliding with players in the malicious way, which it is relatively malicious, then you should take a penalty. And I know it didn't hurt anyone, but it's that same sort of shit. And then they gave the fingers to the fucking thing. What about the one where Connor Nash tried to take off? I can't remember the Geelong player, Myers. He took off his head.
Myers. Yeah, I think that again was just. I don't think there's any intent to strike.
What would you do with Lee Matthews talking about like having a send-off rule?
I don't see the sense in that. Well, what's it going to do? It's not going to change anything.
Or he's just talking about like you've compromised the team to having one less at that moment.
But if you go and dispoil the ball and you accidentally collect someone and they're...
Do you think it's accidental?
I don't think he had anything other than eyes on the ball. I don't think he went in there to strike Graham Myers.
They seem to have a pretty good record of accidentally striking people and taking them out of the game, though, Hawthorn, with their unsociable football.
Snipers.
No one calls out.
You think it's a case of sniping?
Well, it's like Blank fucking trying to take out Nick Dacos a couple of years ago. Well, was that like just a fine bit of play, like I just standing my ground?
Yeah, I didn't see. At the time, I didn't see too much in it, but it looked like it was...
I didn't see too much into it, but like I think the way the Hawthorn psyche is, which is the cultivation of, we're going to play a little bit on the edge, and some of these things will happen. I think you got to take that into account. I think there was probably a little bit of intent there.
Was Myers dominating at that point?
Yeah, he had about all these forward entries. So.
'Cause I know Watley's a big fan of his.
He's yeah, but Myers, he had like a lot of their forward 50 entries and stuff.
Okay.
So
maybe there was some intent.
Look, this is the way Hawthorn play. This is the thing that shits me. It's like, back 15 years ago when under Clarkson, and everyone was going, oh, Hawthorn, they play this unsociable football, they'll bump people after they kick and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, geez, it's amazing the context that if we were doing that at Tuesday, what the fucking commentary would be.
Oh, it'd be wrong indeed to be ironed out.
Yeah, so I think it's well coached to go, push them to the edge. Mitchell obviously comes from the cultivation of Clarkson. I mean, they've got a kicking game plan. They are Hawthorn of like that. Yeah, they're on the edge and all that sort of shit. So I wouldn't be surprised if it was a little bit like, if you can hit someone hard in a tackle, then go for it. Unfortunately, the tackle went fucking a little bit high. So, but everyone's going like, oh, hang on, Geelong didn't remonstrate in line. It's like, well, maybe because they fucking hit it really well. What do you think about Geelong? Geelong's been pretty good the last couple of weeks.
Who they got this week?
Geelong's got Collingwood.
No. Who they this weekend?
They beat Hawthorn on Easter.
Yeah, but they're playing a game this weekend.
Easter Monday. I don't know. Fucking who knows? I don't know. Don't ask me. And they beat Adelaide. Didn't we look it up on the iPad?
Yeah, I don't know. We're playing this at the G, aren't we? We're not playing anywhere else. We don't play Geelong anywhere else.
No, everyone whinges about us not playing anywhere outside of the fucking G. Well, jeez.
Do you know what I say to that? Fuck it.
Fucking John Ralph. So what do you think? They're playing pretty well. Brisbane did touch them up a few weeks ago, which I think showed...
in the wrong spots, or...
Yeah.
So... Was there a dolly involved to show where they were touched up?
Yeah, I think I should move away from that one. So what do you think? I mean, we're going to smash them?
I'd hope so.
Could you see us losing another game the whole year?
We'll definitely lose one. We'll lose one of those unexpected ones.
To North Melbourne?
Again, I think everything each week feels like it's a test at the moment about where we're at. We've passed a fucking lot of them with flying colours, but at some point, I don't expect us to win every game. Probably just the majority of them. I'm not sure about this week, to be honest. Geelong annoy us. We're probably due for a loss, but we'll probably just win this one by 8 goals.
I don't bet it convincingly. I think we match up well against Geelong. Cameron's the big issue, so that's the one concern.
You want more back, I think, just to feel a little bit more comfortable going in.
Dangerfield, I think we've got players. Fuck, he's a good old man though. But I think we've got guys that can try and cover it. Midfield wise, we're pretty good. Their rucks, Stanley and Blitzarth.
The Cox has to come in.
So no, look, I'm relatively confident. We've got an 8-day break also.
Well, that's the one thing that works well with us. It's a good recovery time.
So, any final thoughts?
No, just go out there and fucking smash them.
Use a piece of paper to throw up the phone.
Am I going to hit the phone this week?
I don't know.
Are we doing this in tandem?
No, you can go for it first. So, terrible. That's it from us. Leave comments.
Like
subscribe. Like. Share us with people, and
Especially the hot ones.
we'll be back in the future.
Will we?
For us in the future.
That's where a lot of people live their lives, in the future.
Later.
We're fucking shit.